So this is an introduction to the nuclear power production. One of the attractions of nuclear energy is that the cost of production per kilowatt hour of electricity is much lower compared to that of the coal powered thermal power plants. Also, there are fewer issues of mine safety because the mining of uranium or other nuclear fuels are much simpler or easier compared to that of mining coal. Since there is no combustion, we don't have serious issues of atmospheric pollution. The fuel is also relatively easier to transport compared to coal because nuclear fuels have a higher energy content and we require lesser quantities for power production. On the other hand, the serious issues of nuclear power production is mainly the plant safety and issues of disposing the radioactive waste, and then concerns of weapons proliferation because a nuclear fuel with some modifications can be made into a nuclear warhead. Among the countries where nuclear power plays a major role, the leading country is France, where 60% of their power demand is met by nuclear power, followed by Japan, United Kingdom, and Russia. The US does not figure in the top countries because following the 3 Mile Island accident in 1978, they scaled down the number of reactors. As far as India is concerned, in 2018, we had 22 nuclear power plants in our country with a total installed capacity of 6.8 gigawatt. That is around 3% of the total power production. We will look at a few introductory concepts and terminologies. As we know, each atom is made of a nucleus which contains protons and neutrons. Together they are called as nucleons. And then outside the nucleus we have got orbiting electrons. The number of protons in the nucleus is denoted by the atomic number and it is represented by Z, whereas the mass number refers to the total number of nucleons, that means neutrons plus protons, and the representation is shown here. X is the element, Z is the atomic number, and A is the mass number. Another option is to put it in this form. The subatomic particles like neutron, proton, and electron have specific masses which are usually denoted in terms of the atomic mass unit, which is around 1.66 into 10 power minus 27 kilograms. While the neutron and the proton are each having comparable masses, the mass of an electron is much smaller. We can see the corresponding values in terms of kilograms over here. Another term that we will often use is isotopes. These are nuclei having the same atomic number but different mass numbers. That means they have the same number of protons and electrons, but the number of neutrons will be different. For example, if you are considering hydrogen, it has got 3 isotopes. The most common one is called as protium. So that will be having 1 neutron. Of course, number of proton is always 1. So if you want to write the symbol of protium will be 1 H1. There are no neutrons. So it's a single proton. So atomic number and mass number are both 1. Now deuterium will be having 2 nucleons, that means 1 proton as usual and 1 neutron. So the deuterium is going to be 1H2, and similarly tritium is going to be 1H3. It will be having 2 neutrons. Likewise, you can look at the isotopes of uranium. So the most predominant isotope of uranium is uranium 238. 238 is the mass number, its atomic number is 92. So that comprises around 99% of total available uranium. The remaining 2 isotopes, U235 and U234, are much smaller in quantity, but these are more useful for nuclear power production. You can see that the mass numbers are only shown here to indicate that that is the quantity that is different among the isotopes. We also sometimes come across 2 other particles. One is a positron. You can see the symbol is E with a plus sign, which indicates that it is very similar to an electron. The mass of the positron and the electron are exactly the same, but the positron has a positive charge while the electron has a negative charge. That is only different. So these can be considered as antiparticles. If they combine, they will produce a large amount of energy and the mass gets annihilated. Another particle is a neutrino. referred to using the symbol nu. It's an almost massless particle and there is no charge. So it's something with no charge and almost no mass. These are a few examples. So you can see this is a protium atom, 1H1. There is a single proton. This is the terminology that we are using. Proton is shown by a black circle, neutron by a white circle, and the orbiting electrons by a minus sign within a circle. So this is the nucleus of a protium atom. Only one proton is there, no neutrons. Size also you can see here in terms of centimeter. There is one electron as usual. The helium atom is having 2 protons and 2 neutrons. That is shown here, 2 protons and 2 neutrons. So the mass number is 4, atomic number is 2. So you got 2 electrons as well. Similarly, lithium has 3 protons and 3 electrons. Number of neutrons will be 4. That is the reason it is having a mass number of 7. Carbon is having atomic number 6. So 6 protons and 6 electrons. It also has 6 neutrons. That is the reason the mass number is 12. So this is a comparison of chemical and nuclear reactions. In a chemical reaction, atoms of the reactants are combined or separated. The molecules undergo changes, but the atoms themselves are not changed, they retain their identity. For example, if you are having a hydrogen atom in the beginning, the products also will be having one hydrogen atom. One critical point here is that the valence electrons are shared or exchanged. Nucleus is unchanged in a chemical reaction. That means the chemical reactions are involving interaction of electrons only. Protons and neutrons are not at all involved, and that is the reason the elements themselves are unchanged. They can combine with others to form new compounds, but the atoms and therefore the elements are same for the reactants and the products. A simple example of a carbon reacting with oxygen to form CO2. You can see there is a one carbon atom on either side. Similarly, 2 oxygen atoms on either side of the reaction. Compared to that, in a nuclear reaction, the nuclei of products and reactants are different. That means the species on the reactant side and the product side could be different. Here there is a conservation of the total number of nucleons. That means the total mass numbers on the reactant side and the product side will be balanced, but there is going to be a redistribution. You may end up with more number of protons or less number of neutrons and so on. So one example is shown here by a general notation. There are 2 nuclei A and B which are reacting to form 2 different nuclei C and D. The corresponding atomic numbers are Z1 for A, Z2 for B, and so on. The mass numbers are A1 for A, A2 for B, and so on. So since the number of electrons is conserved, the sum of atomic numbers on the reactant side and the product side are going to match. Similarly, as the total number of nucleons remains same, the sum of mass numbers on the left side and the right side are equal. Sometimes nuclear reactions are accompanied by the emission of electromagnetic radiation such as gamma rays or neutrinos, but this radiation and particles have only energy and they don't have any mass. So the equations shown here are not going to be affected by these emissions. So here we will introduce a very important concept of binding energy that is critical to nuclear reactions and nuclear stability. If you look at a particular nucleus, what we find is that the mass of the nucleus is somewhat lesser than the sum of the masses of its components. For example, if you are looking at a helium nucleus, it has got 2 protons and 2 neutrons. 2 protons and 2 neutrons will have a total mass, but the mass of the helium nucleus is going to be somewhat smaller. So this extra mass, which is actually getting destroyed during the combination of this protons and neutrons, can be represented in terms of this equation here. Delta M is called the mass defect, the difference between the mass of nucleons and the mass of the nucleus. N is a number of neutrons, Mn is its mass. So this is the mass of total mass of neutrons, and this will be the combined mass of protons and electrons, because both have the same number Z. This is the mass of the atom. So the difference is the mass defect, and since this mass is annihilated, it will have an equivalent energy given by the famous equation delta m into c square. C is the speed of light, 3 into 10 power 8 meter per second. This term, called as a binding energy, as the name indicates, it is something like a glue which keeps the protons and neutrons together, which is binding the nucleons together within the nucleus. So the greater the binding energy, the more stable will be the nucleus. And as we said, as the constituents protons and neutrons are combining to form the nucleus, this energy will be released by the annihilation of this mass. We can see some figures here. The binding energy corresponding to 1 gram, that means substitute 1 gram here in this equation, the energy term that we get will be a huge quantity here, 9 into 10 power 13 joules. Just for comparison, 1 gram of a hydrocarbon fuel, when it is undergoing combustion, produces around 40 kilojoules of energy, whereas you can see how much different, how much larger this quantity is when the nuclear reaction is occurring. So corresponding to 1 atomic mass unit, because we are dealing with subatomic particles, using atomic mass unit is preferable to using grams, etc. So for 1 atomic mass unit, the corresponding energy quantity will be 931 million electron volts. 1 electron volt is defined as the energy required to accelerate 1 electron across a voltage of 1 volt, and that has an equivalent joule value of this much. So a mass defect of 1 atomic mass unit will correspond to a binding energy of 931 million electron volts. We look at an example of helium again. The mass of 1 helium atom that has been determined by mass spectrography is around 4 atomic mass units, and the mass of a helium nucleus will be the difference between the mass of the atom, that is here, and the mass of 2 electrons. So we can calculate that as here. The mass of nucleons, if you calculate the individual mass of the nucleons, that will be twice the mass of protons plus twice the mass of neutrons, because there are 2 protons and 2 neutrons in the helium atom, as you can see here. So that adds up to a slightly bigger value. So the mass defect can be calculated as a difference between this, and that will be around 0.03 atomic mass unit. Corresponding binding energy will be 28.2 million electron volts. We can also find the binding energy per nucleon. There are 4 nucleons, so the binding energy per nucleon will be around 7 million electron volts. If you calculate the same for deuterium, the binding energy per nucleon is around 1 million electron volt. The significance of this is that the higher the binding energy per nucleon, this nucleus is going to be that much more stable. Here we have a comparison of different elements. On the x-axis we are showing the mass number, and on the y-axis we have got binding energy per nucleon in terms of million electron volts. We can see the smaller nuclei will be on the left hand side, like hydrogen, helium, etc., and the bigger ones, uranium, plutonium, etc., are going to be on the right hand side because they have a higher mass number. What we see is that the binding energy per nucleons is increasing with mass number initially. It will reach a peak somewhere and it will again drop, indicating that the most stable nuclei are somewhere in this range. So that corresponds to elements like iron, nickel, cobalt, etc. For example, in the case of iron, the mass number is 55, somewhere here. For nickel and cobalt, it is 58 and 59 respectively. So we have all this species somewhere lying in this range, which corresponds to the peak, and naturally these nuclei are more stable. Since smaller nuclei have lower binding energy per nucleon, they are less stable and they have a tendency to combine to form larger and more stable nuclei, for example helium, and that is what we call as nuclear fusion. On the other hand, larger nuclei will tend to split in order to form smaller nuclei which are more stable, and that process is called as fission, nuclear fission. Another factor affecting the stability is the number of protons and neutrons. It is seen that when the number of protons and number of neutrons are both even numbers, such nuclei are more stable for a given element. One example is shown here. For uranium, which has an atomic number of 92, we are looking at two isotopes here, 238 and 235. So uranium has 92 protons in both cases. Number of neutrons varies. Number of neutrons can be found by the difference between the mass number and the atomic number. So for uranium 238, the difference is 146. So there are 146 neutrons in the case of U238, and U235, it is 143. So you can see 92 protons and 146 neutrons. So that satisfies this even criteria, and therefore U238 is more stable compared to U235, which has got an odd number of neutrons. Another feature is that except in the case of very small nuclei, number of neutrons normally exceeds the number of protons. This is actually good because the more number of neutrons are there, they will form a kind of shield between the protons and reduce the extent of their repulsion. So that keeps the nucleus more stable. An important concept when we are dealing with nuclear reactions is that of radioactive decay. The unstable isotopes, for example, elements which are heavier than polonium, which has a mass number of 84, have a tendency to emit radiation and undergo nuclear reactions to transform into more stable nuclei. There can be different modes of radioactive decay, which we are going to see later, but the net effect in all the cases is that they undergo some transformation to become more stable. That process is called as radioactive decay, and it's a spontaneous process. Here the so-called reactants are usually called as parents, and the products are called as daughters. Usually in the case of a decay, there is a reduction in mass and some energy release. So this can be seen either as an increase in the kinetic energy of the particles or the emission of gamma rays or some other form of radiation. Here we are going to look at a few different types of nuclear decay. One type is alpha decay. An alpha particle is a helium nucleus which has got 2 protons and 2 neutrons, and in case this is able to find 2 electrons, this will become a helium atom. So in the case of alpha decay, a heavy nucleus, for example a plutonium nucleus like this, will form an alpha particle and get transformed into a lighter element. You can see what is happening here. It's plutonium 94 239. It is emitting an alpha particle, that is 2He4. So correspondingly, the daughter nucleus that is here will be having an atomic number of 92 for conserving the number of electrons and protons. So 92 corresponds to uranium. So plutonium has formed uranium, and the mass number can also be found by the mass conservation. So that will be 239 minus 4. So 235 will be the mass number of the uranium that is formed by the alpha decay. Another class of particles is beta particles. A beta minus particle is an electron, and a beta plus particle is called as a positron. So a beta decay is when a nucleus is emitting beta minus particles, and this usually happens when the nucleus has got too many neutrons. What is happening is that the excess neutron is getting transformed into 1 proton and 1 electron for maintaining the charge neutrality, and 1 neutrino also. We can imagine what is happening if a neutron transforms into a proton. The mass number should stay same because both contribute to the mass number and both have nearly identical masses. On the other hand, the number of protons has gone up, so that the atomic number will be increasing by 1. This is usually accompanied by an emission of neutrino and gamma rays. The example shown here is that of lead getting transformed into bismuth. Lead has a atomic number of 82, mass number of 214. So during the beta decay, the mass number remains the same because the electron has no mass almost. So mass number is same. Atomic number has gone up by 1 because there is an additional proton that has been formed. So this represents the neutrino that is emitted. Also, if you have a comparison of the different emissions, the gamma rays have a shorter wavelength and higher frequency and energy, and they have a higher penetrating power compared to either beta or alpha particles. The third category is gamma decay, where an excited nucleus, shown by this star symbol here, falls back into its stable or ground state, so that the excess energy or the excitation energy is released as gamma rays. The gamma rays are always emitted from the nucleus. Next category is positron decay. As we have seen before, the positron is denoted by beta plus. It is an antiparticle of the electron, and the positron decay happens when a nucleus has got excess protons. So just like a neutron can be converted into a proton, the reverse can happen. So that is what is happening in the positron decay. The excess proton is converted into a neutron plus positron. The mass of proton and neutron are nearly same, and the positron carries away the plus charge that is there in the proton. So as a result, number of protons is coming down, so the atomic number is decreasing by 1. But since proton and neutron have the same mass, the mass number remains unchanged. As there is one proton less now, it is emitting one electron as well to maintain the charge neutrality of the atom. So this electron and the positron can combine, and the mass annihilation occurs, and this releases energy in the form of gamma rays. The energy of the gamma ray can be calculated based on the combined mass that is annihilated, twice the mass of each particle, both have the same mass, times 931. That is the energy released by one AMU. Around 1 million electron volt of energy is emitted in the form of gamma rays. One example is a decay of a nitrogen atom shown here. So the production of the positron shown here. So the atomic number reduces by 1, and nitrogen becomes carbon. Mass number remains the same. And here this positron and the emitted electron are combining to form gamma ray. The condition for positron decay to occur is that the parent nucleus should be in an excited state, having more than 1 MeV of energy. This is required for converting the proton into the neutron. Then only the positron decay can occur. Now, suppose a nucleus has excess protons but does not have this threshold energy. It can still undergo a certain different type of decay, what we call as K capture. So here what is happening is that number of protons has to be reduced. So it is absorbing an electron from the shell nearest to the nucleus. So that is a K shell. That is the reason we call it like the K capture. One electron is captured from the K shell. So this proton and this electron are combined to form a neutron. Once there is a vacancy of electrons in the K shell, an electron from one of the outer orbit will take its place. And as electron falls from a outer orbit to an inner orbit, there is always an emission of X-rays. So that's one difference that we see here. In the previous examples, the gamma rays were emitted from the nucleus, and the X-ray is emitted as a result of the electrons losing their excitation. One example is shown here, that of copper absorbing one electron and getting transformed into nickel. So the atomic number reduces by 1 because this electron would have combined with one proton, and as the proton gets converted into a neutron, the mass number is unaffected. It is accompanied by X-ray emission. This is the combination of proton and electron to form neutron. The last category of nuclear decay is neutron emission. It is seen that the binding energy of neutrons varies with the mass number of the nucleus, and the average value is around 8 mega electron volts. What is seen is that if the nucleus is having an excitation energy greater than 8 mega electron volts, the same amount, the nucleus may undergo decay by emitting a neutron. An example is shown here for the case of xenon. What is peculiar here is that the element remains the same, because since it's a neutron that is emitted, the atomic number does not change. So 54 on the left side, 54 on the right side. So these two are isotopes of xenon, right? Only the mass number is different. These reactions are very useful in controlling the rate of nuclear fission in reactors, because certain isotopes have a higher nuclear reactivity compared to certain others because of the difference in their stabilities. So this conversion can be actually made use of in controlling the rate of nuclear reaction.